I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 18th meeting of the Stillwater Planning Commission. Item 2, be a land use for discussion and possible action. Gary and Mickey Rogers' final plat of PZ 162123 requesting review and approval of the final plat for property address 700 and 800 East Northgate Drive.
Evening, I'm Mike Beatty. Make sure we're all right. This is a final plat of a preliminary plat you saw a couple of weeks ago. It's at Northgate and Hartford, in the northern part of the city off of Perkins. It was rezoned recently from 2 commercial lots. The revised preliminary plat changed those commercial lots to residential lots. There's the lots shown in yellow, proposed lots. This is the site as it stands, looking to the top photo is looking back to the east from Hartford. The bottom photo is looking back to the west towards Perkins. The conditions for the preliminary plat approval are reflected on the final plat. The final plat appears to be consistent with all applicable city codes. The improvement plans, drainage study, have got to be provided and finalized before it can be approved by City Council. They are in the process of doing that now, but still some submittals that have to be done. Any questions?
No questions for Mike? All righty, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this item, please step forward, say your name and address. Seeing none, anyone who wishes to speak against this item, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for staff's alternatives.
You can approve the final plat as is presented. You can deny the application, or you can continue the issue to another date.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion among the commissioners?
I move we accept findings and recommend the City Council approve the proposed final plat as presented.
Second.
That does pass 6-0. Item B, the general lighting and sign services specific use permit PZ 16-2128 requesting review and approval of a specific use permit to allow the construction of an electronic message center at property addressed as 105 South Main Street in the Commercial General Zoning District. Mike?
Okay. This is for a replacement sign, essentially. This is a photograph aerial that's showing the site. It's surrounded by commercial general except for the residential off to the right here, behind the building. The sign, proposed sign location will replace the existing sign at the northwest corner of the property, up near the intersection of Elm with Main Street. The applicant is requesting a specific use permit for the sign because he's going to have a digital portion of the sign. It is required. This section of the sign, the existing sign is shown on the left, the proposed sign on the right. The bottom darkened area there is the portion that needs to be approved. The LED sign is less than 40% of the total sign square footage. That small portion down here was only 16 square feet out of a total of about 100 in the whole sign, so it's well within the limits. The LED sign meets all other code requirements. Any questions?
Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please step forward and say your name. Seeing none, anyone who wishes to speak against this item, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Alternatives, you can approve the proposed specific use as is presented. You can deny the application, or you can continue it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any discussion?
I move we accept findings and recommend the city council approve the specific use permit as presented.
I'll second.
Let's vote. That also passes 6-0. Item C, EM of Stillwater LLC map amendment and rezoning PZ-16-2133, requesting review and approval of a map amendment at the property located at 1220 West 12th Street to rezone from RSS residential single-family small lot to zoning district RTM residential two-family multifamily and O office zoning districts. Staff.
You do that very well. This is a rezoning of an infill lot. It's surrounded by residential on the east. To the north is RMU. To the left is a residential PUD with 5 buildings and essentially duplexes. Across the lot, or across the street to the south, 12th Street, is SMC Southern Campus, where they have office and medical facilities. This is a site looking to the north from 12th Street. There's been some grading and some leveling there. This is looking from 11th Street back down the corridor. This is that 35-foot section that kind of extends up to 11th Street. This is the SMC campus to the south. Just a comparison between the residential and the office. There's quite a bit of difference. If you look at the office across the street, and the request was to rezone this northern 230 some feet to RTM zoning residential, and then the southern 350 feet to office. So just a comparison of the different things that are allowed between the two zonings. There's the RTM and RSS zoning. There have been no proposed plans for the particular development, just that they want the southern half to be office, or the southern 2/3 roughly, and the northern portion to be RTM zoning. The parcel has frontage on both 12th and 11th Streets. It's located across from SMC South Campus. A portion of the property, the very southern portion, is within the 100-year floodplain, and so they'll have to deal with that. Multifamily duplexes and nursing home uses are adjacent. Go back to that property here. The nursing home, the RMU property, is just immediately to the north. This PUD, RSS PUD, is essentially duplex lots. So you have some multifamily type applications, even though you don't have that zoning there. Single-family uses are adjacent to the east. This is kind of an infill, one of the last few large undeveloped parcels along 12th Street. And as I said, there are no development plans submitted with the application. So I don't have anything specific there. Any questions?
Mike, on the O zoning, on office zoning, that is the most restrictive commercial zoning we have, is that correct?
Yes, it goes, the density and level of development goes up from office. So just general commercial or industrial, anything like that would be considered a higher, more dense development than office.
Is there still a medical office, or is it all office now?
Across the street to the south?
No, is there zoning for medical, or is it all straight office zoning? In our,
You can have
zoning.
professional offices,
Okay.
which would be a doctor's office or,
is that a separate category, though?
I don't believe
Not
there is.
anymore, okay.
no.
In the old days it did, but no.
You
As
know,
far as I know, it.
Yeah, ambulatory care or something like a hospital would be different, but.
And are the
offices-
duplexes already there on the west side?
Yeah, let me go back to that. Oops. Let me- If that. Yeah, the duplexes are here along the west side. And they've been in for a number of years. I don't know quite how long they've been there, but it was a PUD. So,
Any other questions for staff? All righty. With that, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor may step forward and state their name and address, please.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Ghost with Ghost & Associates. We're the engineer for the project. I'm just here to answer any questions. Looking through staff's report, the recommendations and their discussion, the point of that residential in the back is to provide that transition back into the neighborhood from the office. There's been a lot of interest in the office portion of it and people coming in for that use, not for single family, with 12th being a 4-lane brand new road. It's going to be hard for somebody to want to put single family front on 12th. So that's where we're at. I'm just here to answer any questions during that piece of it. So.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? All righty. Anyone wishing to speak against this item, please step forward and state your name and address.
My name's John Pollock. I live on one of those lots, east adjacent side,
What is your address, Mr.?
1106 South Adams. So I would be just east of the portion that they were wanted to change to RTM. And when I bought that place, it was to live there, and of course I checked to see what the zoning was and what the long-range plan was. And at that time, it was single-family residence. So I thought that'd be a nice place, you know, in a quiet neighborhood. So some of us have concerns. We don't fully understand this, you know, what this might lead to. And it might be all right, it might not, but, you know, we just got our notice Saturday and trying to figure out what's going on. So I guess my main concern is if we could table this until we have more time to find out things.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Your request is to table, how long is your request to table? Is it to November 1st? Would that be sufficient? Or table it beyond
Probably.
that?
Yeah. We just, you know, we got it Saturday, and it was Monday before I could find out much of anything. And then some of the neighbors that I've talked to were, well, some of them were out of town. I got a hold of them, and some of them were on business trips and this and that. And people just haven't had much time to think about it, or, you know.
Mr. Pollock, also, because this is a rezone request, we'll probably never know exactly what's going to go onto those properties prior to rezoning the property.
Right. It's
You know, unless the developer wants to get in some communication with the neighbors or something.
and that's why we're trying to understand, I guess, what the two extremes might be, and, you know.
Sure.
Because if I understand it right, it could be zoned for two-family, which would be essentially duplexes, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
But the multifamily could be apartments. And we don't understand the full ramifications of that, and what kind of apartment buildings they could be, or how dense, or, you know.
Or boarding houses or what?
Yes, exactly. So we have concerns, and we don't fully understand it yet. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else wish to speak against this item? Go ahead and step forward and state your name and address. I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't think that's what he was looking for.
Hi, my name is Dina Atwood, and I'm probably the one that was out of town that the gentleman referred to. I think he spoke to my husband. My address is 1310 West 11th, so we are north of the property being discussed. I think, number one, because we did just receive the letters on Saturday, there's no way that gave us sufficient time to really understand what the development could mean or the impact it could have. There are already duplexes there. I think for those of us that have lived there a long time, they have not been well kept. So I would not call the current duplexes anything that has added in value to the area around. It's a quiet neighborhood right now, so what is being proposed potentially could be a complete disruption to what's there now. Property taxes could be affected, obviously. Security, trash. I mean, there's a lot that I think needs to be discussed, and we need to understand really, what the possible outcomes are. And I know that you said you wouldn't know exactly until after it's rezoned, but it's hard to try and speak completely in an educated fashion when you don't know what the plans are, what they're submitting. It's kind of giving somebody carte blanche to come back to you with anything they want. And for those of us I grew up on that street, so I've been there since the age of 0, and I'm still there. So it's important to me to protect, what the neighborhood is, what it has been, the people who live there, even the nursing home. That's a quiet area, and we just want to make sure that we're all for growth and advancement. We want to make sure that it's done in a good and positive way that's beneficial to everybody. So.
Anyone else wish to speak against this item? Sure, if you'd like to come up and answer
In
questions.
the interest of addressing their concerns,
Would you step up to the
Yeah,
mic?
sorry.
Thank you.
With the short notice, we would request to postpone it for 2 weeks, to table it, to allow us to have those discussions, since the notices just showed up the other day. So
Okay.
put that out there.
Anyone else wish to speak against this item? That will close the hearing and go ahead and hear staff's alternatives.
All right. You can recommend approval as it's been presented. You can recommend approval with different zoning boundaries. We can change the depth or the dimensions of the office and the RTM. You can recommend all office and neighborhood transition zone, or RT zoning. Or you can recommend the request be denied or continue to table to a certain date.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone care to make a motion?
Before we make a motion, I think this is going to be tabled. Between RSS and RTM, there are other zonings that are in between there in terms of densities. That's a correct statement, I believe. If you would provide that information to us in terms of what zone, if any, is between those two, I'd appreciate
So
that.
next, RT, which would be duplex, just RT.
If you can do a table like this,
Oh.
this table is very good.
Okay.
And if you can add that to this table so I can review it side by side, that would be superb. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
I'm going to move the table.
Anyone care to make a motion?
Well, I'm sorry, bro. I'd just maybe encourage the developer to have some conversation with the neighbors around the area. I think the unknown is probably maybe what the biggest concern is from what I'm hearing. So I would definitely encourage that. And
Is 2 weeks long enough, do you think? Do the Gosses think that's long enough?
As long as they can actually get around and talk to us, we don't know who they are, so it's basically, are they gonna come knock on my door if they don't?
My suggestion is you get together right now and set up a time frame, and that
And a place?
in a place, and it'll appear, assuming the motion goes forward, appear on November 1, and we can always have the right to table it again if that has not taken place.
Just my thought is that once we let the hospital build on the south side of 12, what expectation, or in terms of C3, because I wasn't on the board at that time, I mean, long-term, you would have expected that would change the character of the area the minute you put in this gigantic development from the hospital there. So, I'm not surprised that this is Palm or others like this may well come, because they went and allowed that.
Do you want to make a comment?
yeah, go ahead.
I don't personally have a problem with the office. I think it fits proper on 12th Street. It sounds great. What I've got a problem with is the multifamily and the density associated with that in terms of a duplex versus a multifamily type structure that's an apartment complex. I just have a concern with that. I'm not, with this track, I'm not, exactly sure what you can put on it. So I have the same question as the residents have, and that is where I focus my concern. The office, I'm thinking, is fine with me.
Yeah, I think that's going to probably be a medical office type, of some type, with everything else being medical down there. But what do you do with that back portion, I think? And I think flesh that out a little bit, especially with the neighbors. And
I'd just like to say I appreciate the developer being willing to go forward with the table and speak with the residents. With that, I'd ask again for a motion.
I move that we find that additional information or discussion is needed prior to any recommendation, the table a request to November 1st of this year.
second.
That does pass 6-0. And item D, Johans and Christine Hurst, map amendment rezoning PZ-16-2134, requesting review and approval. Requesting review and approval of a map amendment at property address 2215 East 6th Avenue to rezone from IL Light Industrial Zoning District to CG Commercial General Zoning District. Mr. Beatty?
Thank you. The site's located on East 6th Street. It's on a track that was developed years ago with a minor sub-process that left a parcel here with access via private road to 6th Street. The applicant is anticipating or requesting to do an addition to this building, and the rezoning allows them to do that. You have, on each side, you have commercial general on each side of the track. This single tract is the only light industrial track in the area. This is a photograph looking to the east from the access road at the existing buildings. Comparison between the two tracks, both zonings allow the use. The proposed use is for storage, private storage. The difference is in the setbacks for the structure. Commercial general allows for a 0 setback, otherwise, or a 20-foot rear yard setback. Otherwise, it'd be 50 foot in the existing building, and any additions would be non-conforming. Findings: the tract is adjacent to central or general commercial property. Rezoning is necessary to allow for the building addition. The request is in compliance with the comprehensive plan, and the proposed and the existing use is permitted with the new zoning.
Any questions for Mr. Beatty? All right, thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak in favor of this item, please step forward. State your name and address.
I'm Jimmy Hill, 2700 Southwestern. I just add a little bit about the purpose. Mike has pretty well covered it already. Obviously, the setback requirement on the rear will be less for the CG than it is for the IL. The developer, Mr. Hurst, is present. His plan is to put a 3,000-foot storage building there. With the setback required in the IL, that would not be possible. But with the additional space gained by reducing the rear setback, it will be a tight fit, but it will work. So that is the purpose for the request. If you have any question, I'll try to address that, or Mr. Hurst, I'm sure, would also.
All righty, appreciate that. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, anyone wish to speak against this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and call staff forward for their alternatives.
For this, you can recommend approval as is presented. You can recommend the request be denied, or you can table to a certain date.
I kind of think this one's kind of a no-brainer. It's completely surrounded almost by like zoning. So with that, I would make a motion to accept findings and recommend that the City Council approve the proposed map amendment as presented.
Second.
Let's go ahead and vote. Passes 6-0. Item 3, approval of the meeting summary and discussion, possible action for the meeting summary, September 20th, 2016. Would care to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Let's vote. That passes 6-0. Miscellaneous items from staff. The next planning commission meeting set for November 1st, 2016. And with that, we'll take a motion for
Move
adjournment.
to adjourn.
Second.
Let's vote. And 6-0, we are adjourned.